this time.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to the Front Row Movie Reviews, the podcast for people who actually like movies. I guess we're the Front Row Network now. I didn't get the full memo when everything changed, but I saw there's a new email, so I guess it's official now. And also our Facebook changed, so I guess that's official too.
Our website hasn't. Well, the site's changed, but the address hasn't. So
we've been trying to get that address to change for about 2 years now. It's a sore subject. You can address your concerns to Jeremy Geckner. Maybe one day he'll click the button. I'm not holding my breath, but maybe one day he'll click the button. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to, what episode is this? Oh my goodness, I'm not prepared to host a thing. Welcome to episode 53 of Zone-i-Sodes. We are looking at one of the highest rated episodes if you look online at the top 10s or whatever you want to look at. This episode falls into a lot of those, and so we are here to talk to you up today about 22. I am Scott, and with me as always is
Brandon Davis.
And because we tend to, the estrogen level on the Front Row Network is a little low. Not gonna lie. So when we have female protagonists, it's nice to actually, have somebody who's a female on this show. So welcoming back to the show,
Catherine.
Hi, Catherine. Okay.
Bringing the estrogen, apparently.
And the slow connection. Let's hope that clears up. Okay. Let's go ahead and I'll do my plot synopsis, and then Brandon, you'll give your Rod quote, and then we'll roll with it.
Sure.
So Liz Powell is a dancer who is hospitalized for exhaustion. And every night when she goes to sleep, she wakes up to the same dream where she is thirsty. She goes to grab a glass of water, knocks the water down on the ground, and then hears the nurse go by her door. She follows the nurse down to the basement to room 22, where she is told that there is room for one more. We find that room 22 is the morgue, and Liz should not know that room 22 is the morgue because she's never been there. But she does know the room number, which gives concern to the doctor, who, by the way, is really making me feel like I need to watch Lost in Space again.
Yes.
Dr. Smith returns with the same bedside manner. Yeah. After a while in the hospital, Liz leaves and is decided to go on a vacation. And she, while getting on her flight, realizes that her flight is flight 22. She decides that this is probably not a good idea, stays off the flight, and in what is probably the best special effect Twilight Zone will ever show us in the 5-year run, Flight 22 is engulfed in flames before it takes off. We leave with Liz having another nervous breakdown. Obviously. and Brandon, what does Rod have to say about this?
This is Miss Liz Powell. She's a professional dancer, and she's in the hospital as a result of overwork and nervous fatigue. And at this moment, we have just finished walking with her in a nightmare. In a moment, she'll wake up and we'll remain at her side. The problem here is that both Miss Powell and you will reach a point where it might be difficult to decide which is reality and which is nightmare. A problem uncommon, perhaps, but rather peculiar to the Twilight Zone.
So when we asked Catherine back, she said that she definitely wanted to do this episode. So we'll go ahead and start with you and give her your first impressions of 22.
So I do love this one. I think it's just one of the most deliciously creepy of the Twilight Zone episodes that I've seen. When I go on road trips with my kids, they want me to tell them stories, and I've kind of run out of stories of my youth that are appropriate for kids. So I started telling just the plots of Twilight Zone episodes. And I told them this one. So they've never actually seen it. They've just heard me talk about it. And it creeped them the hell out. And I can just walk into their room and say, room for one more, honey. And they just run screaming. So it's just one of those feel-good, creepy episodes. And as I'm sure we'll discuss, I love the protagonist. I love the dream episodes, by the way. Perchance to Dream is one of my favorites. And then I guess the other one I'm thinking of is 9 Will Not Return. But both of those, you really are not very sure what's real and what's a dream. And this one, you really are with the protagonist and rooting for her the whole time. And you really do believe, unlike anyone else in the episode, that she does have agency and she can figure this out, which I think makes it unique.
Right.
You do tell him stories about Mr. Beavis in the car rides too, right?
I don't think I've told them about Mr. Beavis yet. I've only told them my favorite ones.
Or perhaps Mr. Dingle.
I haven't gotten to the lower tier episodes yet, Scott.
Do not mock Mr. Beavis and Mr. Dingle. Do not do it. Them's fighting words.
Oh, we'll get to Dingle in 2 weeks. I've got some things to say.
Brandon, I will pay money. I will pay money right now if you never say we'll get to Mr. Dingle in 2 weeks ever again. Brandon, go ahead and give your first impressions.
Touche. This is one that I really enjoyed. I don't think we've seen as creepy of a one since the After Hours last season, which I really liked. I guess maybe the Howling Man, but that's kind of different. It's not quite as in the same vein. But this is the best of the ones so far. Well, Night of the Meek, I guess, but one of the best of the ones that we've seen shot on videotape so far, or shitio, as you like to say. But I really enjoyed this one. Barbara Nichols is an interesting actress. She was kind of, at this point, if you couldn't get Marilyn Monroe to play a part, you would cast Barbara Nichols. It was kind of the thing to do in Hollywood at the time. But it's an interesting episode. I think that she's an interesting protagonist. It's creepy, and for one of the cheaper episodes shot on video, they really put some effort into this, and you can tell that a little bit more money was spent than some of the other ones we've seen shot on videotape. So it's a really cool episode, and it's a really great atmospheric thing, and we'll get to him. But of course, I love Jonathan Harris, one of the great scenery chewers of all time. So we'll get to that later. But yeah, this is a really fun one.
Yeah, for me, this is one of those where I know it's one of the top tier episodes, and I always wonder, is it just me? Probably just me. But whenever people talk to me about the episodes that are supposed to be like the best of the best, I don't think they're bad, but they usually don't come to the top for me. There are a few exceptions. Monsters Are Due, obviously, is one of my favorite episodes. But for this one here, I haven't seen it much because it's not usually one of my go-tos. I think part of it is there's not much going on in terms of plot, and don't ridicule me for saying that. There is a huge amount of story going on. It's very much visceral, but in the grand scheme of things, you've got 3 characters. 4 if you count the nurse, and it's the same beat a couple times in a row, and so it's not one of those episodes that really gives me a lot to bite into, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, and you guys will tell me how wrong I am, but that's usually where I am on it. So I haven't seen this much as with other episodes. That being said, now that I've watched it again for the first time in a while, holy crap, did Final Destination steal from this episode. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that until this watching. Now, there's been like 15 million Final Destinations, but for the kids who were around in the 90s, the first Final Destination film, which I watched the hell out of because it was something that wasn't as stupid as most of the slasher flicks that were around back then. It was the same time that Scream and everything came out, so it was all about teenagers dying. But that one actually had some intelligence to it. and the deaths were fun to watch. But the whole cusp of Final Destination is the students at the beginning of the film are taking a field trip to Paris. They get on the flight. The protagonist has a premonition that the flight's going to explode. He jumps off the plane. His friends follow him, and the plane does explode. Oh my God, it is literally the same thing that happens in this episode, to a point where obviously they just ripped off the story. So that's interesting to see on this time around. So let's talk about the things we liked about the episode. Brandon, what do you got?
Just the atmosphere, and I don't think I disagree with you too much when it comes to this being a little lower on plot. You know, this doesn't have as many twists and turns as some of the episodes we talked about in the last year and a half that we've been doing this. But I think it's one of the most atmospheric. I think it really sets a tone, unlike a lot of the ones that we've seen. You know, just the beginning dream sequence when you don't know what's going on at all, and she gets to that long hallway and the night nurse comes out, and says room for one more, and the way it just builds, and you really feel for this woman. And so I think you have a protagonist that you can really root for in this episode, and you also have just a very eerie tension throughout the whole thing, and the way it all builds to a head in the climax, I think it's one of the most well executed episodes we've seen for a while, and this is one that was written by Rod himself, so I appreciate it in that way too. But just really good, and it's one of those episodes, as I mentioned in my intro, I really didn't notice or was bothered by the fact that it was shot on video, because I think the whole episode really does what it needs to, and it's not distracting, and there's so many good, it's basically her, but you've got these nice little performances by all these other people, so that there's a lot going for this episode. And it's one that I actually I hadn't seen before I watched it, but I actually watched it twice because I enjoyed it so much.
And for the one thing that you hit on with the, because I'm usually the one who complains about it, shot on Shidio. This is the second to last episode that was shot on video. And if you're just catching up with us, just to kind of give you the idea of what's happening here, CBS decided to go with season 2 of the Twilight Zone, but season 1 didn't really get the ratings that they were hoping for. In fact, Twilight Zone in general never was a huge rating maker until after its initial run, when it was on syndication and reruns. So CBS is like, okay, we're going to let you come up for season 2, but we want to try an experiment. We want you to shoot on video for 5 episodes and determine if that's going to save some money. And then we can kind of go from there. And this is all based on the fact that Rod Serling's original show that he had done for TV was a video show as well, too, back in the late 50s. And they found that in all of this being said and done, they saved such a finite amount of money, and the quality was so much lower. The fact that you can't do a lot of effects, you have to do the steady cam, it looks like a play or a soap opera, that it wasn't worth continuing. So thankfully, we have one more episode left, and then we will never see Twilight Zone on video again. So I'm looking forward to that. But I will tell you, I will say, this and Night of the Meek are the 2 video episodes that I still enjoy, even though they're on video. Right. Because for me, it's so jarring, especially when you're watching these in order, because they were all filmed at the same time, the video episodes, but because the order was thrown out the window, they come and go. So it really just kind of pops out of nowhere. You're like, oh, good, another video episode, great. So I'm looking forward to the last one coming here in a few weeks. Catherine, what do you got?
Well, yeah, when I read up on this, I was actually surprised to read that it was shot on video, because I didn't even notice it. I think it's such a close anthrophobic like show episode that it really doesn't bother me. I think it kind of works. But in terms of things I like, I think just primarily the main character, Liz. I think she's a great character because she's just surrounded by all these idiot men who don't believe her. and treat her like a child and call her kitten. And the doctor, played by Jonathan Harris, is just so delightfully just smarmy. You just hate him. You just sit there and love to hate him, and because he's so terrible. And the whole while you are rooting for her. And it dawned on me watching this that that's kind of special and different for something that was produced in the early 60s, and to have this character who's very strong and has agency and is very believable, being not only a woman, but a single woman who's had a nervous breakdown, who is basically a stripper. I mean, this is not the kind of person that you would expect to have be a very level-headed, logical character. But she is, even though she's caught in this weird nightmare, she thinks through it very logically, and she does try to affect the dream and change it. And it doesn't. She's in the airport and she figures out, okay, obviously I need to not get on this plane. And meanwhile, the entire episode, everybody's telling her, they're there, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. You're just having a nervous breakdown. You're just having dreams. And we really are rooting for her the whole time. And I read a little bit on the actress, and that she was, before she entertainment, that she was herself a burlesque dancer, basically a stripper. And so she probably, knew what this was, to not be taken seriously and to be put in these roles where she wasn't necessarily the voice of reason. So that was, I think, a good choice for the actress to match up with the character. And that was my favorite part of it.
Going one more time, going back to the video, and then I'll stop. I think you hit on it, though, because the way it is shot, the dream sequences, the basement is very claustrophobic, and most of the shots are very close on her, because obviously we're supposed to be caring about what she's doing. We're supposed to be empathetic to her, so a lot of the shots are really focused on her. You're right. The video takes a back seat, which makes it easier to handle, and you don't notice it. In terms of some of the things that I enjoy about this episode that you guys have already hit on is the visceral nature of it. But another thing I really enjoy is I love when Twilight Zone tries out some new ideas and kind of runs with them. In this case, we're talking about lucid dreaming. And it's a quick scene. There's not much to it. It's definitely not the theme of the episode. But I think it's the nurse. Maybe it's the doctor. I can't remember now. One of them tells him to try something different. Just don't get out of bed. And so she definitely tries that. And for the first time in her dream, we get the pack of cigarettes. But then we also find out that the dream is so powerful that no matter what she tries to do, it's going to end with the glass falling to the ground. This time she drops the lighter, which in turn makes her knocks over the glass. And then she still has to follow the nurse down the hallway. I really do enjoy that, because I've always been fascinated by lucid dreaming, because for some odd reason, I can sometimes do it, and it's very interesting. One of the things I like to do, you can try this at home, kids, is I'll go to sleep with the TV on, but I'll select the movie based on what I want to do. I know it sounds weird. Just go with me here for a minute. And because I guess subconsciously I'm still hearing the movie, I dream about the movie a lot. It's kind of fun. So check out lucid dreaming. It's interesting if you can handle it. Most of the time it's, you don't remember it anyway, but hey, you spend a lot of time asleep, some more than others, and you should try it out. The other thing I really like about this, everyone's like, okay, Scott's great. Another thing I like about this episode is I really enjoy the Foley work, the sound work on this.
Yeah.
The overpowering footsteps, the sound of her throat being dry. There's just so much Foley work going on here.
Yes.
It's really, really impressive. And it's only done when she's dreaming. The rest of the time, it's pretty much what you would usually get out of sound effects. But when she's dreaming, it just adds to the visceral nature. I think, oh my goodness. What was the name of the episode? Dang it. I'm terrible with names of episodes. Oh my goodness. The The other dream episode. Oh, Perchance to Dream.
Perchance to Dream.
Perchance to Dream used visual to remind us we're in the dream sequence, whereas I like this episode. This episode's handling of the dreams more because it didn't really change the way the episode looked, aside from being claustrophobic, but the sound really reminded you that you were in that place.
Right.
Anything else you guys liked about the episode?
I just appreciated, we've talked recently as we've been going on that we've seen so many of the same similar themes over and over again on the Twilight Zone, and yet there hasn't been like any major attempt to make them different at all. But the one that you can connect this to, as you mentioned, was Perchance to Dream, but they're so totally different.
Yeah.
And to do one, we haven't seen one on Dreams since then, and to be able to see two totally different views of it is I really appreciate it, because how many aliens visiting us have we seen so far where they all end the same, and others, but to do the same theme but to actually have them have two completely different outcomes and to view them from a different plane is just really, really interesting, and I really appreciate that they gave it that effort.
Yeah. Especially with season 2, it seems like we've been kind of going back and forth on the same theme, so I completely agree with you. It's nice to have something different, and it's always nice to have a female protagonist do it. We've already kind of hit on her, but I mean, it's we always get strong female actors that do these roles, and it helps. And you can tell that Rod is doing everything he can to give them what they need to make those roles powerful. It's not like a one-off, like we got to have a woman in here because she's got to scream. They're able to do a lot more with the roles, because I think the writing staff and the director gives them that opportunity to do that. Catherine, you got anything else you want to add for liking?
Oh, I just wanted to add that, good God, is that nurse creepy. I mean, they couldn't have found a better face for that. I think I'd run screaming if I saw that face. Just the deadpan expression.
I do love, though, when we finally see her as a real person and she's the flight attendant, because even she like closes the hatch and she just kind of gives like, that woman's crazy.
I know, right?
She doesn't realize in about 10 seconds
she's about to die.
Yeah, she's going to be a fireball. She doesn't realize that, but it's nice because you get the visceral, like the nurse from hell that wants to bring you into the morgue. Then you got the flight attendant who's just like, I deal with this every day. There's some crazies out there. I just got to let it go. So anything that we want to talk about that we did not like about the episode? Catherine?
The only thing I could possibly think of was that I thought reenacting exactly the same dream, like, yeah, they had to show the beginning of it to show how she tried to make it different and everything, but it got a little bit long. At some point I was like, okay, I know how this goes now. But that was the only part of it that I thought got long or boring or anything like that. I really don't have any complaints.
That's exactly what my issue with this episode is, and it's not a huge I'm not going to rate it really low because of this, but I think the director could have done a better job. This is definitely not the same type of story, but I go back to Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, one of my favorite films of all time. It's the same day over and over again, but they find different ways to film it, even if it's the exact same shot. Like the guy falling into the pothole, or Bill Murray falling into the pothole every day. They film it differently. They do different angles. They do different people watching it. They do. It allows you to get a better idea. Now, I know there's not much you can do with a long hallway, but maybe we could have had one shot over the nurse's the perspective. Maybe we could have had something where it was done. I don't know. I'm not a movie director, but I think there could have done some different ways of doing it. And they already shown that this is not always the perspective of Liz, because we see her running for the elevator at the end of the dream. So they can do whatever they want with the camera angles. And I think this goes back to The video. I mean, when you
Yeah.
have to shoot on the Steadicam video and you have to do a 2-shot routine, much like sitcoms nowadays, you don't have the ability to do a lot of different shooting. And I think that hinders this episode for that one reason. Brandon, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, you both hit on that one aspect of it, which I would definitely point out. Also, I wish there had been one of these male characters that wouldn't maybe necessarily totally buy into it, but at least show her some kind of support.
Can I get one male character that's not a douchebag? Is what you're asking for here?
That's what you want, really?
We got Dr. Smith.
I know.
Who's just who's trying to hit on her, and it's really creepy. It's not as bad as
it's so creepy.
It's not as bad as some of the other ones that we've had recently.
No.
I go back to Penny. Not Penny for your thoughts.
No.
Oh yeah.
But
Still, it's like somebody file a complaint with the physician's disciplinary board or whatever.
I think
not okay.
I think it was less creepy for me because it's Dr. Smith. And so I already know he's evil. I have so typecast this actor that I just know he's evil.
Well, and this is 4 years before Lost in Space, and he's already got that character.
I'd be intrigued. He's playing the same guy. I mean, obviously, especially season 1. When you get into season 2 of Lost in Space, he becomes more of slapstick. But season 1, he's evil. Yeah, he's a conniver. He's there to make sure that he survives and he doesn't care about anybody else. And he's got the bedside manner of a dickhead. I mean, I really need to talk about Lost in Space, Brandon. This is like the second time we've talked about Lost in Space.
This is your next project, right?
No, because I can do season 1 and that's it. When they go to color and they have the carrot man alien, I can't do it.
Oh man. I could talk about the Great Vegetable Rebellion, but that's a whole different.
I would take hours and hours of Bewitching Pool before I take the carrot guy from Lost in Space.
Oh.
And for those playing the home game, just Google carrot Lost in Space, and it will show up. I promise you, it will show up.
I'm going to do that right after this.
Oh my God. Star Trek and Lost in Space were at the same time. Star Trek tried, Lost in Space didn't. Okay, sorry. I'm done with my rant now. Where are we?
Is it your turn to say something you didn't like?
I think you guys hit on it. I mean, the atmosphere was good, but I think if we could have shot a little bit different angles, changed up the dream a little bit more, that would have made this a more interesting episode for me. Right. If I go every time she falls asleep, I get worried because I don't know what's going to happen next. As much as I don't like these movies because I think they're way overdone, but Nightmare on Elm Street films. Every time a character goes to sleep in that, you don't know what's going to happen next, but you know nothing good's going to happen. And I think if we had that same kind of foreboding feeling whenever she would go to sleep, I think it would make the episode more of a thriller. That being said, as soon as she goes to the airport, it definitely it's thick, and because it's a new location, it's a new experience for her. You're feeling for her, and you don't know what's going to happen next. That atmosphere is much better once she leaves the hospital. So let's go ahead and if you have any closing thoughts, now is the time, and then we'll score this thing. Any closing thoughts from you two?
Just a very nice change of pace in the middle of season 2. We really good. We haven't had something so creepy in a while, and it was nice to see that. So I really appreciate. It's kind of this oasis in the middle of the desert of season 2. So
I know season 2 is a little bit of a it's a drag, but there are some really, really good episodes still coming up in season 2. 2 of my favorite episodes of all time are coming up back to back, and I'm looking forward to that. But we got a few more months to go before we get there. Before that, we have to talk about dinosaurs and Mr. Dingle. So,
Yeah.
Catherine, do you have anything you want to add for closing?
You know, this one made me think back to one of the other very strong episodes with a strong female protagonist, and that's The Hitchhiker. And this is kind of like the mirror image of the Hitchhiker, like the other side of the coin, because in that one you have a strong heroine who's determined to fight for her life, but she has to come to terms with the fact that she's dead, and she needs to go gently into that good night and accept that. And in this one, you have a strong female heroine who has to come to terms with the fact that if she doesn't fight back, that she's going to die, but that she can change, she can alter that course of her life, and she can save herself. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and score these. And for those of you who are just joining us, we rate these on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst episode of The Twilight Zone ever made, and then a 10 being the best episode of Twilight Zone ever made. And because I think all of us would agree The Twilight Zone is one of the best TV shows of all time, or we wouldn't be here talking about it over and over again, a 10 would be one of the best TV show episodes of all time. So we'll go ahead and get our scores, and we'll start with Catherine.
I'm going to give this a 9 for no other reason, just that, like you, when I think of a 10, I think of Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, and how that kind of has this message that resonates beyond the Twilight Zone and beyond TV and all of that. And so not much else measures up to that, but there's not a whole lot I can criticize about this one, and I really like it, so I'll give it a 9.
I think your cat was wanting to murder you right now. Just throwing it out
Oh,
there.
yeah. I'm not paying enough attention to him.
Brandon, what's your score?
I'm going to give it an 8 because I was thinking about the episodes I gave a 9 or a 10 to, and they all kind of have that little extra kick to the gut, you know, that you walk away from. This one, I think I gave the After Hours an 8 as well. Maybe I gave it a 9. I don't know. But I kind of put this on the same plane with that. You probably have the statistics. But no.
Me? Who? You gave it an 8. You gave After Hours an 8, yeah.
So I'm right where I thought I should be. So yeah, this episode for me is top tier, but not quite the Hall of Fame. So I think 8 is probably where best to place it from my rankings so far.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the same boat on this one as I was with the Invaders a few weeks ago, and I don't understand why I don't see the same things that everyone else sees on these. And it's not that I don't like the episode; it's just I think Brandon, you hit on it. I don't think it has that gut check for me that some of these other episodes do, and so it doesn't have that lingering effect on me. So I'm going to give it a 7, just like I did the Invaders. So you can find us at thefrontrowmoviereviews.com. As we mentioned, the website hasn't changed. Or you can search for us at the Front Row Movie Reviews on Facebook or Twitter. And then if you are listening to this podcast, please make sure to like and subscribe and give us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever you're listening to on this. I think we're on Google Radio now. Give us a rating, because that really does help us elevate to the higher levels when people are searching for podcasts. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you give us a subscribe and a like, and then also click that notify bell icon. We filmed this episode live, and if you wanted to join in on the conversation with us, clicking that notify button will let you know immediately when we start recording another episode, so you can jump right in and join us. Until next time, I have been Scott, and with me has been
Brandon, and I do need to read Rod's final words.
And Catherine.
Go ahead, Brandon. One of these days I'll remember how to host a show. It's just not going to be tonight.
I'll finish. It's okay. Miss Elizabeth Powell, professional dancer, hospital diagnosis, acute anxiety brought on by overwork and fatigue. Prognosis with rest and care, she'll probably recover. But the cure to some nightmares is not to be found in no medical journals. but look for it under Potions for Bad Dreams, to be found in the Twilight Zone.
I love how Rod just brushes off. She'll be okay. She should be fine. She just witnessed the death of 150 people. But she'll be fine. She's gonna be good. She's gonna be good. Death is not going to follow her and find other ways to kill her, like in Final Destination. So she'll be fine. And Catherine, we stepped over your goodbye. So go right ahead. Try again.
My name's Catherine. Goodbye.
And thanks again for joining us. We love having guests on here, and you always have some great insights. So we'll have to do it again soon. And then we'll be back, I promise, next week. Because that episode's in the can, so it's gonna be it's gonna be easy for me to hit submit. With where all the savings from the video episodes went into one 2-second scene in the upcoming episode.
Yes.
And I am not being facetious. All of the savings from the video episodes went into one scene. And we will talk about it next week. And it is not as good as the fireball from Flight 22. All right, folks. Thanks and have a good night. And until next time, we will see you on the couch.
See ya.
And if you try to get me into a morgue, I'm probably gonna punch you in the face. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm a lucid.
Always room for one more.
Am I lucid dreaming? No, there's not.